Is the Irish Times. Schmidt's squad tailored to combat power game, and nice little nugget there about
Keith Wood.
Yeah, you did the pink.
Oh well, no, it's a pretty straightforward anecdote. 2003, Gordon Darcy gets cut from the World Cup. Eddie O'Sullivan kind of didn't think I had enough discipline to play international rugby, but I saw it coming ever since a bonding night in Bilbao during summer training camp. The beers were beginning to flow when Ireland captain Keith Wood sidled up to me with the bluntest information I've ever been given. I don't think you are good enough to play for Ireland. So fairly ruthless from Keith Wood at the time. To be honest, if Darcy really says he wasn't too wrong. He walked away as a nose dived into my pint glass. The words were ringing in my ears the next morning as we went training. But I began to realise Woody was watching a young player who was off the tempo. I hadn't shown my peers what I was capable of doing. But maybe that's kind of part of the player-led culture of excellence that actually did exist that we don't really appreciate from that era of Irish rugby. Like when he talks about this current squad, he's a little bit worried about the exclusion of Will Addison, and he's also a little bit concerned about Gary Ringrose. It seems that the language around Gary Ringrose being used as a cover, at wing, a fullback, all that sort of thing, should be alarm bells ringing for people who think that Gary Ringrose might be a nailed-on starter for this Ireland team. Yeah,
for Gary Ringrose, basically, as well. The Star this morning, Swiss gold. Obviously, you know, Switzerland famous for the gold. FAI banking on Ireland victory to provide a Euro 2020 lifeline. So obviously, at the moment, things not going very well financially for the FAI. Paul Lennon has detail here. The association has been cleared by UEFA to draw down up to 25 million to meet its ongoing cash crisis. However, qualification would be a good thing. Bottom line, 9.25 million, another 1.5 million for every game we win in the group, and 750 grand for the draw, which is probably a bit more likely. If we were to reach the second round, another 2 million, and if it was to be a miraculous tournament and we were to reach the quarterfinals, there'd be another 3.25 million on top of that. So up to 11 million on offer for qualification, and obviously if you win, more people will buy tickets. You get some pre-tournament friendlies, all that kind of stuff. The big news, I think, really, I'm burying the lead on the back of the Star, is Fenton had final knock. So not very many details on this. But Brian Fenton is believed to have carried a back injury into last Sunday's All-Ireland final draw with Kerry. He struggled to make an impact. It's unsure if he's in danger of missing the replay, but that's it. And then Peadar Cuffig-Byrne was named in the panel at the weekend as cover. So was that his first time to play with the senior team beyond the Tyrone game?
Oh, beyond the Tyrone game. Yeah, was he on the bench maybe for the Mayo game as well?
I'm not sure. Certainly,
I'm not sure.
He's playing with the under-20s all
Yeah, but he was obviously on the panel the day after the under-20s final against Tyrone when he got black carded, unfortunately. He's Blondie Cuffig's son, Peadar Cuffig-Byrne. So the camera kind of
never mentions that, do they?
the camera panned to her really when he got sent off with the black card. You barely got to see his reaction in the 20s final. So yeah, he was on the bench last weekend, and obviously cover at midfield. And he's somebody we'll get to the Examiner later on as well. That Kieran Shannon mentions him as well in his column, which we'll get to. I've got the Mirror here in front of me. Their headline is about Owen and Shearer. It's war. Shearer says, "You wanted to retire. We all thought that. We all thought that with you on 120k a week." Owen, meanwhile, says, "You're not that loyal to Newcastle. You were inches away from cop move." I'm sure people would have seen this on Twitter yesterday. This is in the Mirror, who've got exclusives, it seems, on Owen's book extracts. Like, they say that the row between the two players has been brewing for a decade now, that Shearer put Owen up in his house when he joined Newcastle, and then in the thick of a relegation battle in 2009, Shearer told friends that Owen indicated he would not bust a gut to be fit for the run-in, as no new deal looked likely. So it's kind of your word against mine at the moment. There's 3 different articles included in the newspaper this morning, and it seems that Michael Owen's book is going to be, at the very least, as a fairly entertaining read. There's an article here about Wayne Rooney, there's an article here about Fabio Capello, and there's an article here about David/Victoria Beckham. So the one about Wayne Rooney...
David/Victoria.
He talks about Euro 2004 in the context of Rooney. Euro 2004 in Portugal under Sven-Goran Eriksson was a very strange tournament for me anyway. On reflection, it's about as close as I got to a personal crisis. It wasn't jealousy I felt. Perhaps it was just the first inkling that a change of the guard was underway. I get the sense it probably was a little bit of jealousy from Michael Owen here in this case. He talks about beating Switzerland 3-0, Wayne scoring twice, I assisting both. After the game, the atmosphere changed. much as I still felt like the main man, the hysteria around Wayne was incredible. Even though I was still confident in my ability and was playing quite well, I started doubting my status. Suddenly Wayne was the main striker, and it was between Darius Vassell and me for the supporting role. Little did we know at the time, but those 4 games in Portugal would be the peak of his international career. This is of Wayne Rooney at the point. As much as he had a great career and broke records, he never really caught fire in major tournaments thereafter. I was really struggling with the fact that as much as I believe I still represented our best chance of a goal, this is in Euro 2004, I just couldn't put the ball in the net. After the Croatia game, for the first time I felt I'd lost my sense of purpose. I was feeling really bad about myself. I was accustomed to getting off the team coach and hearing fans shout, "Come on Michael, let's have a goal from you." I felt relied on and responsible. Now all I heard was, "Rooney, Rooney." I thought, God, in everyone's eyes, he's now our best chance of scoring. It sounds a little bit like jealousy to me, to be quite honest with you, that the new kid comes along. Owen, in his mid-20s at this point, kind of feels that it's a little bit too soon for him to get shunted aside.
Yeah.
He talks about like Rooney chipping David James and nutmegging people on his first day in training, and he's like, God, kid on your first day in training, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. I mean, there are some obvious parallels with somebody else.
Almost like that reality TV show where Wayne Rooney is nutmegging that teenage keeper, and Wayne Rooney widely celebrates on that reality TV show.
Did he do that? Because Michael Owen does the same thing. You sure it's not Michael Owen you're thinking of?
That's what I said. Sorry, Michael Owen is what I meant. Did I say Wayne Rooney?
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant Michael Owen.
I was like, what? Did Wayne Rooney? Yeah.
No, he just did Wayne Rooney's street footballer, wasn't it?
Yeah, but my point is it's exactly the same thing that happened in '98. Wayne Rooney's done exactly the same thing to the England squad that Michael Owen did in 1998, where all of England was like, oh, this guy, he's our superstar, he's our wunderkind, he's the one that's going to do it. And like, we're talking 6 years later?
6 years later.
He's 24, he's gone.
He talks a little bit. It's only kind of a small bit.
You might have spotted that, like...
Who was the Michael Owen before Michael Owen?
I mean, who's this whole story about?
Alan Shearer.
Shearer missed the World Cup in '98 with an injury.
While you're looking that up, he does have a little bit on the '98 World Cup. He talks about David Beckham in France '98. He says,
Sorry, the 1998 World Cup is the one that Shearer gets into by threatening. He kicks the head off Neil Lennon, literally, on the sideline, and then doesn't get suspended because he's the England captain and says, I'm going to withdraw from the World Cup squad if you suspend me. So I was like, all right, no, it's just there. I mean, they've had a full and frank discussion, and both sides have agreed to move on.
Yeah, I think back then he would have been known as a hard bastard.
He is a hard bastard.
Like, Michael Owen is very kind of acutely aware of the sort of cliches that are used about players and young players in English football. He says, I became the darling of English football while he became the villain. This is in relation to David Beckham. He says, sometime after the infamous Argentina game, the red card for David Beckham, sometime later I heard that his wife Victoria was in some way disappointed in me. She felt, I was told, that when the spotlight was on me after the World Cup, I should have publicly and voluntarily come out and backed David. This is where the disappointment starts for me. He doesn't go into any more detail about how Victoria was disappointed in him. There's no quotes, there's no idea of how that word gets to him, but you have to take his word for it that Beckham's wife was disappointed. He calls the act petulant more than it was violent, but that almost makes it worse. Did he deserve the abuse he got afterwards? Certainly not. What human being should have to see their effigy being burnt? But David let us down, and I still hold some resentment about that today.
Ah, right.
So,
Wow.
which is interesting. And then the other one is that he says Capello was a crap manager. He calls it catastrophic damage to both my career in English football in general, and got paid handsomely to do it. Like he talks about Capello and his reluctance to start Michael Owen in games. I keep getting Owen and Rooney mixed up. To start Michael Owen in games. He says the press were all over it, asking me if he'd explained his decision, and if so, what had he said? They could tell I wasn't happy. That was my intention. I was making a point. My implication was that the reason he hadn't given me any direction was quite clear. He couldn't, because he didn't speak English. I was in a seriously dark mood.
Yeah, Shearer plays in that World Cup, and plays every game. Is he captain of the team? Let me just check the lineups here. You can talk amongst yourself there for a second. It doesn't tell me who the captain of the team is, but he's up there because the other alternatives would be Sol Campbell, or Tony Adams on the team as well. So maybe he's the captain. But anyway,
that's it for today's extract from Michael Owen. Hopefully more in the paper tomorrow. So it's goodbye to Capello, Wayne Rooney, and David Beckham, seen off by the pen being mightier than the sword in the hand of Wayne Rooney.
We never use the express of a morning. You can make your own mind up about that. Why? Except today we're making an exception. Here it is. Shearer and loathing. Owen accuses legend of trying to get out of Newcastle's long-running feud, descends into savage slanging match. Shearer and loathing. Shearer and loathing.
Top of the morning to you.
Right. On OTB AM this morning, we're giving you the chance to go to Ireland against Switzerland tomorrow night in the Aviva to win. Share the show wherever you're watching or listening to OTB AM. We're going to back over 15 years here to the Euro 2004 qualifiers. Tell us which Swiss footballer, a villain, scored in both games against Ireland. 2-1 home defeat, 2-0 away defeat. The name rhymes, if that helps. Quickly through some of the other English papers. The Guardian, that is Conte's US dream dies. British number 1 heads home after straight defeat to Svitolina, and Spectre of Stokes gives plain sleep deprivation. That's obviously to do with the Ashes.
The Irish Independent this morning goes with pressure. Drive for 5 is getting to dubs, says Owen the Bomber Liston. Jan Sommer is saying that Ireland play a very unpleasant style of football. That just seems to be par for the course when it comes to build up to an Ireland game at this point. O'Driscoll says Schmidt's toner omission beggars belief. Like his quote here says, there was always going to be a big omission such as the strength and depth. I guess no one saw Devon Toner being left out. It kind of beggars belief that if the line-out is malfunctioning, you don't include your tallest player and your best line-out operator. And it's something that is touched on by Donald Lennon here as well. He says Schmidt will want order restored quickly after losing control of the narrative. He says more dynamic than Toner. Klein is picked because he is deemed to bring more physicality and abrasiveness to the cause. All well and good, but he hasn't delivered on that on a consistent basis either for Munster or in his 2 test outings. And then he goes into this thing as well about Toner at line-out. As for opposition second row, who would they prefer to compete against at the line-out, Toner or Klein? As captain and thrower, I wonder who Rory Best would prefer to have as a target for his bank-up ball under pressure. How thrilled is the opposition hooker that he doesn't have to allow for the towering presence of Toner when negotiating his own line-out deliveries? Like, I'm all for analysis being simplistic and stuff, but the fact that Devon Toner is tall is such a huge part of the analysis is a little bit strange. It's like, you are tall, you're in the team. It's like something from the longest yard.
Except, you know...
It's important. I'm all for analysis being simplistic, but it's like, it's been pointed out a lot. Like, is that good enough for somebody to get into the team because they're tall?
Well, I mean, when you're like taller than everybody else, and one of your jobs
the line out is to
catch the ball above everybody else.
Yeah, like I get the importance.
You know, it's not like other things that people have. It's a very useful added skill.
I get that, but it's almost like
attribute.
The most important thing here. It's almost as if like if Joe Schmidt spotted a guy whose body was failing him and believed that he wasn't good enough to last a full World Cup, as if that's not as important as him being taller than other people.
Is his body failing him, or can you nurse him through the first 3 or 4 weeks so that, you know, you get to a quarter-final, semi-final, when you need somebody and you're guaranteed 100% of your own line-out ball in a game? Maybe you don't need that. I don't know. Maybe that's not important. Maybe that won't come back to bite us in the ass.
I think that if Joe Schmidt was going to take a chance on somebody who might be able to be nursed through the pool stages of a World Cup, he would have put that chance and put those hopes in the hands of somebody he's coached for 10 years. Like, the more I've thought about this over the last couple of days, the more I'm thinking...
He had no choice.
Schmidt clearly knows better than we do. This is not a kind of a blasé decision from Joe Schmidt whatsoever.
No one's saying it's blasé.
No, I know they're not, but like this is something that has been compiled with a lot of information, way more information that we have.
Yeah, this is true.
And
I mean, we don't get any information from the Irish rugby camp.
And the fact that he is tall is such an obvious thing that, you know, if he was looking at things the same way as us, then he would pick the tall guy, would he not?
Well, look, the Sun, back at the Sun this morning. Dids don't lie. What do you think that is? Who's out of the squad? Swiss squad?
Ger and Eoin.
Dids don't lie. Hips don't lie.
But what's the did?
I don't know.
Is that Darren Randolph's nickname?
It is. Yeah. There you go.
There you go. Saved you there.
Yeah. So McGoldrick was asked about this, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're buzzing." He's like, "He's a great player. We're absolutely thrilled." He's like, whereas Mick McCarthy's like, "Oh, you know, doesn't change anything. He's a good player." But Darren McGoldrick's absolutely delighted.
Yeah. So McGoldrick is talking about Ger and Eoin.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. The Times this morning, Archer's got lots to say.
Can we just go back to how the ancient mystics, the oracles of Kerry football, rolled out last week and started just injecting that confidence, that hardness into the team and how it worked. Jacko, basically, no evidence-based analysis of the game, just ultimately chisel it all away. We are Kerry. And that was it. That's all they needed to do. It was like some beacon went out across. If I knew my geography properly, I'd go from whatever the northmost up in hurling country down to West Kerry, down to South Kerry. The flames were lit. The lights went up. You could see West Kerry and South Kerry from space because Bomber and Jacko and all the rest of them came out with 3 words: we are Kerry. That's what happened.
And it worked.
It did.
And no, it didn't.
It did.
This whole thing that things worked, or there's it's done now. People are wrong or whatever. It's just not true until the replay is done.
It is true. It got them in the game. It got them in the toe hole. That's all they needed. It's up to the players themselves now. We've done our bit. They're like, Sherpa leading all those rich white Europeans to the top of the mountain that they've been to a million times themselves. It's like they're the Sherpas, and the rich young lads are the young Spillans and the young Moran.
It actually does kind of look, the quotes here from Listen are kind of reminiscent of somebody talking about climbing Everest. I had the experience of the 5 in a row pressure, and a lot of us felt very big and were pale and everything. Coming down the home straight, it was intensified even more. It is almost like somebody describing a big expedition.
Now they've got to get it in. Come on, 5 in a row. Talk about it all the fucking time. Talk about it every time. Get on the shows and talk about it.
Does the hype not lessen for a replay?
Don't think so. I think it gets that extra level of pain and suffering for. Imagine losing it now. Imagine getting this close. They had a kick to win it.
Was #things leaded in between the first game and second game in 2016?
Yes. So what's
the perfect time for a media campaign?
Exactly. What's it going to be?
Let us think.
You haven't got your.
Fenton's back.
Yeah.
Bernard Brogan should be back in the team.
Do you want this as a Kerry man?
Oh, that's a good point. But it's pushing things. It's kind of stirring the pot nicely. I don't know. A couple of changes here. John Small should be dropped.
Give us your Kerry media mafia conspiracy #OTB AM this morning. Here's the Irish News, the final one for us this morning. County Board votes swing it for Gallagher and Derry. So the clubs did not want Rory Gallagher. He's starting a little bit behind the 8 ball, but no better man. I think he's going to be a very interesting appointment. For what it's worth, I think Gallagher will have Derry playing a far more expansive brand of football than Fermanagh did under him. Plus, Derry had been without the defensive organisation they need to progress for quite a while. It was never about him, but rather the process. I think it was about him, though, wasn't it? That's Carol Kane, obviously, of the Irish News, and then Mick Foley in the mix. Someone said to me lately that Gallagher might see Derry as a way to escape stereotyping as a totally defensive-minded coach. That makes sense. Right, okay. What's next, Tommy? Here is some Keith Wood last night talking. Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Ron McGar is with us next, talking the very latest about the Irish rugby squad. We want to bring you this next. With 20 days to go to Japan, we caught up with Keith Wood about some of the most special moments in his international rugby career. #Team of Us.